How do you use the past tense in Italian? The passato prossimo is the most important past tense in Italian. Now, while it may have a few irregularities, as many things do in Italian, it's actually quite easy to use and incredibly handy for talking about experiences and events that have occurred recently or still influence you today. In this lesson, you'll learn how to conjugate verbs in the passato prossimo, when to use it, and how it compares to other Italian past tenses. Now, there will be lots of real-world examples too, so you'll know exactly how to use the passato prossimo in Italian. And don't worry about taking notes, I've done all the hard work for you. To help you to practice everything you're about to learn here today, make sure you download your free PDF cheat sheet for this lesson. It includes all the vocabulary and examples that you're about to see. Just click on the link in the description box below this video. Pronti? Iniziamo! So what is the passato prossimo? The passato prossimo, also known as the present perfect, is the most commonly used tense for talking about events in the past in Italian. Now, whether you're sharing memories, catching up with your friends about your latest adventures, or gossiping about what happened last night at the piazza, this is the tense you'll want to learn. Now, the name gives us a hint about its usage. Passato prossimo literally translates to near past. Therefore, we use it for actions that have been completed but still feel recent or continue to have an impact in the present. Now, this key aspect distinguishes it from the other two significant past tenses in Italian, the passato remoto, which is used for events that are distant in time and emotion, and the imperfetto, which describes actions that occurred repeatedly, habitually, or over an unspecified duration. Take a look at this example.
Ieri ho visto Matteo al bar con una ragazza.
Last night I saw Matteo at the bar with a girl. Now, the event is in the past, but it happened very recently, making it relevant to our current conversation.
Non ho mai preso la patente. Devo rimediare.
I've never gotten a driver's license. I need to do something about it. Now, this sentence refers to a past action that continues to affect the present, as having no driver's license is still relevant today. Now, to learn more about how to use the Italian imperfect tense, make sure you watch my video lesson right here. Okay, let's take a look at how to conjugate the passato prossimo in Italian. Now, unlike the passato remoto and the imperfetto, which are simple tenses, the passato prossimo is a compound tense. This means it is formed by two components, the auxiliary verb plus the past participle. Now, the auxiliary can be either
Essere,
to be or
avere.
to have, conjugated in the present tense. Now, the past participle is formed by changing the ending of the verb according to its conjugation group. Here's how it works. Verbs ending in are change to ato. For example,
Guardare. Guardato.
verbs ending in ere change to uto. For example,
Ricevere. Ricevuto.
verbs ending in ire change to ito. For example,
Sentire. Sentito.
let's take a look at the passato prossimo with the auxiliary verb avere. The auxiliary avere is typically used with the verb avere, to have itself. Transitive verbs, which are those verbs that answer the questions who or what. Take a look at these examples.
Guardare.
To watch,
Ho guardato. Hai guardato. Ha guardato. Abbiamo guardato. Avete guardato. Hanno guardato. Ricevere.
to receive,
Ho ricevuto. Hai ricevuto. Ha ricevuto. Abbiamo ricevuto. Avete ricevuto. Hanno ricevuto. Sentire.
to hear,
Ho sentito. Hai sentito. Ha sentito. Abbiamo sentito. Avete sentito. Hanno sentito.
Here are some example sentences.
Ho avuto mal di stomaco questa mattina.
I had a stomach ache this morning.
Per quando hai prenotato?
When did you book it for?
Abbiamo visto Antonio l'altro giorno. Secondo noi dovresti parlargli.
We saw Antonio the other day. In our opinion, you should talk to him. Now let's take a look at the passato prossimo with the auxiliary essere. The auxiliary essere is generally used with the verb essere itself and with intransitive verbs, those that do not answer the questions who or what, such as verbs of movement like
Andare,
to go,
arrivare,
to arrive,
partire,
to leave,
tornare,
to return,
venire,
to come. Verbs of change, which describe a transformation or a change in state. For example,
diventare,
to become,
crescere,
to grow,
cambiare,
to change,
nascere,
to be born. Verbs that express a state like
restare,
to stay,
rimanere,
to remain,
stare,
to be. And reflexive verbs like
svegliarsi,
to wake up,
vestirsi.
to dress, and so on. Now, to learn how to use reflexive verbs in Italian, you can watch my video lesson right here. In the meantime, here are some examples with the auxiliary essere.
Andare,
To go,
sono andato, andata. Sei andato, andata. È andato, andata. Siamo andati, andate. Siete andati, andate. Sono andati, andate. Cadere,
to fall,
sono caduto, caduta. Sei caduto, caduta. È caduto, caduta. Siamo caduti, cadute. Siete caduti, cadute. Sono caduti, cadute. Partire.
to leave,
Sono partito, partita. Sei partito, partita. È partito, partita. Siamo partiti, partite. Siete partiti, partite. Sono partiti, partite.
Here are some example sentences.
Il capo è stato fuori ufficio tutta la settimana.
The boss has been out of the office all week.
Siamo partiti l'altro ieri.
We left the day before yesterday.
Ti sei pettinata questa mattina?
Did you do your hair this morning? Attenzione, some verbs can take both
Essere,
to be and
avere,
to have, depending on their use. Now, when they are used transitively, they take avere. When used intransitively, they require essere. Now, let's see an example with the verb cambiare, to change.
ho cambiato la giacca.
I changed the jacket. Here it's transitive.
L'orario dell'appuntamento è cambiato.
The time of the meeting has changed. This is intransitive. Are you enjoying this lesson? Don't let the learning stop here. Make sure you download your free PDF cheat sheet for this lesson, which you'll find a link to in the description below this video. Okay, now let's take a look at some irregular past participles in Italian. Now, some verbs don't follow the usual patterns when forming their past participles. Now, instead of the familiar endings of ATO, UTO, and ITO, they have unique participles that you'll need to memorize. But don't worry, the more you practice, the more instinctively they will start to feel. Now, here is a list of some of the most common irregular verbs that you'll encounter when forming the passato prossimo. Take a look.
Accendere,
To switch on,
acceso. Apparire,
to appear,
apparso. Aprire,
to open,
aperto. Assumere,
to hire,
assunto. Attendere,
To wait.
atteso, bere,
To drink.
bevuto, chiedere,
To ask.
chiesto, chiudere,
To close.
chiuso, condividere,
To share.
condiviso, connettere,
To connect.
connesso, conoscere,
To know.
conosciuto, correre,
To run.
corso, cuocere,
To cook.
cotto, decidere,
To decide.
deciso, dire,
To say.
detto, dividere,
To split.
diviso, esistere,
To exist.
esistito, essere,
To be.
stato, fare,
To do or to make.
fatto, leggere,
To read.
letto, mettere,
To put.
messo, morire,
To die.
morto, muovere,
To move.
mosso, nascere,
To be born.
nato, perdere,
To lose.
perso, prendere,
To take.
preso, promettere,
To promise.
promesso, raccogliere,
To gather.
raccolto, ridere,
To laugh.
riso, rimanere,
To remain.
rimasto, rompere,
To break.
rotto, scegliere,
To choose.
scelto, scrivere,
To write.
scritto, soffrire,
To suffer.
sofferto, spegnere,
To switch off.
spento, spendere,
To spend.
speso, togliere,
To remove.
tolto, tradurre,
To translate.
tradotto, vedere,
To see.
visto, venire,
To come.
venuto, vincere,
To win.
vinto, vivere,
To live.
vissuto.
Let's take a look at some important notes about the past participle in Italian. Let's explore how to use the Italian past participle correctly in different contexts. Now, the first one is when the auxiliary is essere, the past participle must agree in gender and number with the subject of the sentence. Take a look at these examples.
Paolo è andato alla festa.
Paolo went to the party.
Sara è andata alla festa.
Sara went to the party.
I miei fratelli sono rimasti a casa.
My brothers stayed at home.
Le mie sorelle sono rimaste a casa.
My sisters stayed at home. The next one is, with the auxiliary avere, the past participle usually doesn't change. However, there are some exceptions to note. Now, when the auxiliary avere is preceded by a third person direct object pronoun, such as
Lo, la, li, le.
meaning him, her, or it, or the participle,
Ne.
the past participle must agree in gender and number of the object. Take a look at this example.
Ho fatto una torta e l'ho portata a Lucia.
I made a cake and brought it to Lucia. Here, portata agrees with torta, feminine singular.
Questo formaggio è buonissimo. Ne ho assaggiato un po' prima.
This cheese is amazing. I tasted a bit of it earlier. Assaggiato agrees with cheese, which is masculine singular. Now, when the auxiliary avere is preceded by other direct object pronouns like
mi,
me,
ti.
and you, and so on, you can choose whether to make the past participle agree with the object or not. Take a look.
Anna, ti ho chiamato 1000 volte. Dove sei?
Anna, I called you 1,000 times. Where are you? Now, as you can see, there is no agreement here. Chiamato, called, remains unchanged. However, you can also say,
Anna, ti ho chiamata 1000 volte. Dove sei?
Anna, I called you 1,000 times. Where are you? Here, chiamata, for called, agrees with Anna, who is feminine. Okay, now let's take a look at the passato prossimo with modal verbs. In Italian, modal verbs form the past participle by changing their ending, ere, to uto, and use either the auxiliary verb essere, to be, or avere, to have.
Dovere.
To have to, must.
Ho dovuto. Hai dovuto. Ha dovuto. Abbiamo dovuto. Avete dovuto. Hanno dovuto. Potere.
Can.
Ho potuto. Hai potuto. Ha potuto. Abbiamo potuto. Avete potuto. Hanno potuto. Volere.
Want.
Ho voluto. Hai voluto. Ha voluto. Abbiamo voluto. Avete voluto. Hanno voluto.
When using the auxiliary verb essere, the past participle of modal verbs agrees with the subject performing the action.
Dovere.
To have to, must.
Sono dovuto, dovuta. Sei dovuto, dovuta. È dovuto, dovuta. Siamo dovuti, dovute. Siete dovuti, dovute. Sono dovuti, dovute. Potere.
Can.
Sono potuto, potuta. Sei potuto, potuta. È potuto, potuta. Siamo potuti, potute. Siete potuti, potute. Sono potuti, potute. Volere.
Want.
Sono voluto, voluta. Sei voluto, voluta. È voluto, voluta. Siamo voluti, volute. Siete voluti, volute. Sono voluti, volute.
Now, modal verbs can be tricky when it comes to choosing the correct auxiliary verb. Here are some guidelines to keep in mind. The first one is, when modal verbs are used on their own without another verb following them, they take the auxiliary avere, to have. Take a look at these examples.
Abbiamo dovuto per forza.
We absolutely had to.
Ha voluto così.
She, he wanted it this way.
Non ho proprio potuto. Mi dispiace.
I really couldn't, sorry. The second thing to keep in mind is when they are followed by an infinitive verb. The auxiliary verb matches the infinitive verb, so whether it's transitive or intransitive. Take a look.
Abbiamo dovuto anticipare il treno per evitare di arrivare in ritardo.
We had to leave the train early to avoid being late.
Anticipare.
To anticipate or leave early is a transitive verb, so it requires avere.
Non ho potuto avvisarti prima.
I couldn't warn you earlier.
Avvisare.
To warn is also transitive, so we use avere here as well.
Non è voluto venire al cinema con noi.
He didn't want to come with us.
Venire.
To come is an intransitive verb, so it takes essere. Now, when a modal verb is followed by the verb essere, to be, the auxiliary verb will be avere. Take a look at these examples.
Ho voluto essere sincera fin dall'inizio.
I wanted to be honest from the start.
Hai dovuto essere molto paziente con me.
You had to be very patient with me.
Marco non ha potuto essere qui con noi oggi.
Marco couldn't be here with us today. When modal verbs are used with reflexive verbs, the auxiliary verb can change depending on the position of the reflexive pronoun. Now, if the reflexive pronoun comes before the verb, the auxiliary is essere. For example,
Mi sono dovuto alzare presto.
I had to get up early. If the reflexive pronoun comes after the verb, the auxiliary is avere. For example,
Ho dovuto alzarmi presto.
I had to get up early. Now, to learn how to use Italian modal verbs to cheat your way to fluency, make sure you watch my video lesson right here. Are you enjoying this lesson? Don't let the learning stop here. Make sure you download your free PDF cheat sheet for this lesson, which you'll find a link to in the description box below this video. Okay, so how do you use the passato prossimo in Italian? Now, after learning how to conjugate verbs in the passato prossimo, let's see how this tense is applied in Italian. Firstly, we use it to talk about actions that happened recently. Now, this usage often includes time markers like
Recentemente.
recently,
Un'ora fa.
an hour ago,
Il mese scorso.
last month, and so on. Take a look at these examples.
Sono andata a letto subito dopo cena.
I went to bed right after dinner.
Ho parlato con Chiara giusto un'ora fa.
I spoke with Chiara just an hour ago. It's also used to describe actions that have taken place within a period of time that is still ongoing. For example,
Quest'estate siamo stati in Sicilia.
this summer we went to Sicily.
Non ho toccato dolci questa settimana.
I haven't touched any sweets this week. We also use it to indicate actions that originated in the past but continue to have relevance in the present. For example,
Ho sempre avuto paura dei ragni.
I have always been afraid of spiders. Now, this fear originated in the past and continues today.
Abbiamo iniziato a ballare il tango un paio di anni fa.
We started dancing the tango a couple of years ago. Now, it's likely that the speakers are still actively dancing tango today. We also use it to talk about experiences. For instance,
Avete fatto anche voi l'Erasmus in Spagna?
have you also done Erasmus in Spain?
Non siamo mai andati in Calabria.
We have never been to Calabria. We also use it to talk about actions that have happened multiple times in the past. For example,
Ho letto quel libro almeno 10 volte.
I have read the book at least 10 times.
Sono stato agli Uffizi diverse volte. Che magia!
I have been to the Uffizi several times. So magic. We use it to indicate a completed event in the future, typically in casual conversations, such as
Domani, quando ho finito di studiare, vado in piscina.
tomorrow when I finish studying, I'm going to the pool.
L'anno prossimo, quando hai finito gli esami, ti porto a Euro Disney.
Next year, when you finish your exams, I'll take you to Euro Disney. Now let's understand the difference between the passato prossimo and the passato remoto. Now when it comes to choosing between the passato remoto and the passato prossimo in Italian, what really matters is not just the timing of the event, but also its relevance to the present. Let's clarify this concept with an example.
Da giovane vissi 2 anni a Firenze.
When I was young, I lived in Florence for 2 years. In this sentence, the passato remoto,
Vissi.
I lived, is used to talk about an event that likely occurred a long time ago and with no influence on the present moment, making it feel more distant and historical. But if you say,
Da giovane ho vissuto 2 anni a Firenze.
when I was young, I lived in Florence for 2 years, here the passato prossimo
Ho vissuto.
suggests that the experience is still relevant to us now, perhaps because we improved our Italian during those years, and that might still benefit us. By the way, if you're thinking of moving to the Tuscan capital for a while, watch my video to the best things to do in Florence right here. And if you're planning any trip to Italy, make sure you watch my travel tips guide on 48 things you should never do in Italy. And you can find that one right here. Now, to continue your learning and to help you practice everything you've learned here today, make sure you download your free PDF cheat sheet. Again, you can find that linked in the description box below this video. If you enjoyed this lesson, then you'll love Intrepid Italian, my series of online self-paced video courses that break down everything you need to know about Italian using my unique 80-20 method. More details in the description below. And if you enjoyed this lesson, don't miss my lesson on how to use all 15 tenses in Italian, which you can watch right here. Plus, master Italian word order and sentence structure in this video right here. In the meantime, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on those notifications so you get an alert when I post more video lessons like this one. Until next time, un abbraccio, ciao!